Today we're going to do the simple version of a child-sized mask. We're going to use this one just for personal use, essentially. And I was going to start with going ahead and having everything already cut out, but I think this part is really useful for learning, especially for kids and especially for really beginners. So one of the things that I work really hard on is getting the most that I can out of any given fabric. This is a really soft flannel, so it's going to be nice for the inside of our mask so that it's not too rough against the face. And since we need an inside piece that's 7.5 by 5, I want to make sure that I can get as many of those as I can. This is a little over 25 inches, which means, 25 inches wide, which means that I can square it up. Doesn't really look square, does it? And go ahead and cut in at my 5-inch mark. I'm going to go ahead and square it up with my 0 line here. And I'm going to cut in at my 5-inch mark. And then I'm also going to cut in, oof, that's not very square, is it? Let's see what we can do about that. Okay. And then I'm going to find my 7.5, which is awkwardly posed here because I think now I know kind of where I'm headed with this. So I'm just going to cut a straight line up. My mom might be freaking out because I don't know that this is like the best possible way. And then over. Yes, it could be more exact. I don't really. I'm not going to do anything crazy for the sake of the video. So there's my 7.5 by 5 square or rectangle. Excuse me. We know our shapes around here. And then I'm going to take our outside fabric that Eleanor picked. This is also just a nice cotton, tightly woven. This one is definitely cut at all kinds of wonky angles, so I'm not going to go with that side. This side is is on the grain because it's been ripped. Looks like, hopefully. I'm going to cut off my selvage here because nobody wants that. That's where the information about the fabric is going to be printed. It's kind of just the edge. And instead of measuring, I'm just going to take my other piece and lay it right on there.
And cut around it.
And cut around it. I am not being super exact on this, but I don't really feel like I need to be. So the other thing that we need for this is 2 pieces of 7-inch elastic. I've got my elastic right here. This part is super easy. I'm going to stretch it a little bit to get it kind of pre-stretched. Actually, where was, oh, I'll find it later. I thought I had one already cut. So I'm going to lay it at the 0. And there's my 7. And it's nice that I've got plenty of this. I didn't realize I had stocked up so much. But that should go for plenty of these. And 7 inches. Now the pattern calls for us to make a knot at each end. Ugh, I hate doing little knots. There we go. I'm just going to tuck that through. And pull it tight to the end. There we go. Nice little tight knot. Nice little tight knot. Oop, that one went too far. Okay. What I've got here is 2 pieces that are right side up.
And an Eleanor.
And an Eleanor. So what we're going to do is put these right side together. What do you think right side together means, Eleanor?
2 sides together. Perfect.
What's the right side of it?
This side?
Mm-hmm. So what's the right side of the next one?
This side.
What do you think right sides together means?
That we flip this over?
Yeah, there we go. So what we're going to do is we're going to sew around the edges, leaving a hole to pull it through at the end so that you can't see the seams. And if you want, you can use those clips right there to kind of hold it together once you get the edges just right.
I need a little help.
We're going to use the little clips to keep our layers together. And you can put them on all 4 sides. Okay, now we're gonna start right here in the middle at this part, and at the end we're gonna leave a gap right here so that we can pull it through and make it all nice and neat on the outside. So we're going to start stitching. Going to start stitching right here, and we're going to stop before we reach the corner. So do you remember, Eleanor, what we do when we start stitching? And you line it up straight. Move it a little further to the side. Move it so that the edge lines up with the edge of the foot. That'll give us a good, yeah, that'll give us a good seam allowance. Okay, now it's the first thing we do. Right. Now what are we gonna do when we're sewing with fabric? We're gonna stitch 1 or 2 stitches forward, and then we're gonna hit our back button. Some machines have a lever there that it goes back. So we're gonna do 1 or 2 stitches, hit our back button and go back 1 or 2 stitches, and then go back forward. Okay. And that's called back stitching. And then you can go almost to the corner and do the same thing, forward and back, right at the, almost to the corner. Actually, or you can just stop. And just pull off your clips as you go. So now you're getting too close to the clip. You need to pull off the clip. Okay. Okay, as we're getting close to the corner, you can go ahead and stop. Just leave it there. Here is, we've already got our elastic on this corner, and I've got it looped under here, and we're gonna have the elastic, the other knot come out this side, so we're gonna stitch right over it, and then we're gonna have the same little loop this way with knots on that side and that side. So the reason I'm having her do a full back stitch and cut every time we get to a corner is that I want to make sure that these elastic pieces are held in really strong. We could do a pivot like we've been learning to do, but then that would only be a couple of stitches through the elastic and they could pull out really easily. So we're intentionally doing this where we do each line as its own thing and then stop and back stitch. And there's a reason for that. Okay, we've done the whole outer edge, pulling through our little knots at the ends and making sure that those are sticking out. It's gonna seem like they're too small, but we're putting pleats in the sides of this to make it adjustable to your face. So the elastic will be a lot better. There's our hole that we left. We need to make sure we leave a hole. Now, Eleanor, you can reach in there and grab the pieces of elastic and pull them through to pull the whole thing out to be the right sides out. You do this a lot with this sort of thing that has 2 layers.
Like this?
And usually you don't have a helpful little piece of elastic to pull it through. Oh, don't pull that side. Just pull. Let go of the corners because you want the corners to come out, right?
Uh-huh.
There we go. Okay, so at this point we've got it all pulled through. Here's my hole right here. We've tucked it in a little bit so that when we stitch over it, it'll all stay in. If the corners don't come out very well, or if you want them to be a little sharper, you can poke inside with a chopstick and pull that through. I've got my iron on, and I'm gonna go ahead and press this out to make for nice edges. It's a little bit hard on the ends just because there's that elastic there, but we can do it. But this especially helps with closing up the hole because it means that the edges of the hole are going to be nice and crisp inside. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is the pleats. This fits just right over her face at the widest part. We want it to be able to be a little bit expandable and fit really well. So I'm going to fold this up here just a little bit and clip my pleat together. Pleat means fold that goes both ways so that it folds things together like that. I think for an adult size mask, you're going to do 3 pleats, but for a kid size mask, there's not enough room. So not enough face. I'm going to go ahead and use the same clip for both because there's not enough room there either. I'm going to turn off my, yeah, I'll turn that off. So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this back over to the sewing machine. We're going to sew across here to hold our pleats down, and then top stitch. That means do a stitch that you can see that'll hold everything together across the top and the bottom. The top stitch is also going to close up our hole, and then that'll be it. This one we're just going to do a straight stitch. We're going to back stitch at the front and at the beginning and end. We're going to do a straight top stitch. Because this is a top stitch, we're going to do it a little closer to the edge. So I'm having my edge line up with, I've got my machine has a little bit of a line right there. That makes it about a 1/4 inch edge, 1/4 inch seam. So we're just going to stitch right because for this one we get to pivot instead of back stitching every corner. So there we go. We got a good pivot. Lined up our edge really well. Okay, for this side, once we take off our clip or our pin, if you're using pins, we're going to want to be careful to really hold those pleats where they belong, because the presser foot is going to want to push them flat. So we're going to hold them and really guide those pleats under the presser foot so that they don't get pushed flat. Well, trying it on, it fits really well, except we have discovered it either needs to be probably 1/2 inch wider, so 8 by 5 instead of 7.5 by 5, or you need to add 1/2 inch or so to each elastic, because it makes her be a little bit of a juggier there. But she said it feels good on the back with that soft fabric, but it kind of wants to pop off.